Can AI be programmed to have free will? Well, I don't think so, but some DC Comics writers might disagree. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Welcome to Essential Issues Weekly, where I talk about DC Comics 1 week after their release on the Ultra tier of the DC Universe Infinite subscription service. In each installment, I pick an assortment of comics, excuse me, man, I'm really screwing this up today. Assortment of comics to talk about as a DC fan, and also explore what, if anything, they have to say about the essential issues of real life. Now, warning, full spoilers for everything I talk about. Just one comic to talk about this week. It was kind of a light week in publishing, but that's Absolute Power Task Force 5, 6, 7, number 3 of 7, and I have been enjoying this series, except for the first one got off to a bad start with me, but the 2 and 3 I've enjoyed. It's really kind of an expansion to the main events of the Absolute Power story. That's the big crossover in DC. I almost want to say that it's essential reading just to kind of get the full experience of what's going on, how the events of this crossover are affecting the DC universe and its characters. And so, and of course, it helps that this issue focuses on Alan Scott and the Green Lantern concept. At the beginning of the issue, one of the Amazo androids has Alan Scott in his grip and begins, as he's done with many other superpowered characters, begins siphoning his powers, and eventually there is none of his power left. It's all been pulled into this Amazo android and changed it in some way. Now it is infused, we discover later on in the issue, with some aspect of the Starheart, which prior to, I want to say, the last maybe 5 years or so of publishing, was not connected to the concept of will as much as the Green Lantern core rings were. The Starheart was originally, the concept was all the chaotic magic in the universe was gathered together by the Guardians, and it was consolidated into this thing called the Starheart. And there was some sense in which the Starheart was living, which I think makes it reasonable to pair it with the concept of will, as they've done more recently, but that is a recent kind of a modification, retcon, to the Alan Scott Green Lantern concept. It used to just be about magic, wasn't really about willpower, but that becomes a major element of what's happening with this Amazo android here. For the first time, as it's going through its programming routines to go from one action to the next, choice has been introduced, and it's represented in his internal monologuing, with the red text representing what he's programmed for and the green text representing a potential choice. And so throughout this issue, we're seeing him think through his programming, what he should do next, but then it's always met with this box saying Y or N question mark, and the Y is in red and the N is in green. Now, I should say, just as a little diversion from this topic, because that's going to be the main focus, what's going on with Will and this Amazo android, but Carol Ferris has been caught up with Justice Society members, and she's getting some of her own internal monologue where she is thinking to herself, what does it mean to be a hero? That you do what's right no matter the odds, powers or not? And she's contemplating to herself, did I give up my old life for this to be a hero like them? Now, the origins of the Carol Ferris Star Sapphire character is that she was a villain of Green Lantern, being kind of controlled or manipulated by this Star Sapphire power, but she, in recent years, has really gained control over that power and been able to just do what she wants to do while she's using those abilities. And so this is an interesting place that they have Carol, where maybe for the first time she's thinking about being, engaging in the life of a superhero just as much as Hal Jordan does as a Green Lantern. And honestly, I would love to see that happen. I think there could be some really, I've said in Green Lantern that I would love to see them really be solidified as a couple, and I think this could be part of what they're doing there. I would very much be interested in reading a Carol Ferris Star Sapphire solo book and exploring love or whatever they want to explore. I mean, I'm just open. Show me what you can do with this idea, but I'm very much on board with her getting this attention now and hope it leads to something more for her in the future. So later on, at what I would consider kind of the climax of this story, the Amazo android catches up with Alan Scott, the depowered Alan Scott, and the other JSA members that are on the run. But when it comes time to capture them, he hesitates and starts opening a dialogue with Alan Scott, asking him why does he save people. Alan replies, because it's the right thing to do. The Amazo android says, is it your programming? Alan says, something like that. And you, what does your programming tell you to do? He answers, detain those with power, remanding them to the custody of Amanda Waller. Alan says, so why aren't you? There is, he says in response, another voice, one that appeared when I attempted to absorb your power. It is giving me choices. What is this called? And here's where we get to the moment I wanted to spend a little time with. Alan replies regarding what is this voice called. He says, will. It's called free will. Programming that allows you to make your own choice. And the Amazo android responds, yes. Now, if this were the Starheart having some sentience bleeding through into the Amazo android, that would be enough for me for it to have some aspect of a will that's at play interfering with its choices. But for the Amazo android to have its own will brings into question the nature of will, the nature of personhood. And so I think this is very relevant that we come to this pinpoint moment where Alan defines free will as programming that allows you to make your own choice. Now, if we're kind of putting our discerning caps on, then I think some alarm bells should be going off saying, something about this doesn't work. If we think about programming, ultimately, even if it's something that appears to create choice, appears to replicate free will, is that actually what's going on? Well, I would say no, because we don't know exactly how our own choices work. We can look at brain patterns and see some things that are going on at the times that we are making choices, but that's correlation, not causation. And so not knowing for certain exactly the mechanisms of how our own free choices work, then how can we know that is actually what we are replicating when we create this programming that maybe does some random algorithmic stuff to spit out something that seems like a random choice or seems like choice instead of just like a, if-then programming. But at the end of the day, it's all if-then. It's all responding. It's all cause and effect. So that there is no actual choice in the sense of free choice. But if you believe that choice is an illusion, then this definition works. But you have to really believe that it's an illusion. Otherwise, it all kind of falls apart. So this is a concept of free will that works on a naturalistic worldview. If you believe that ultimately we are just wet machines, we're just wet sacks of cause and effect, and we are completely subject to our stimuli. But it does not work on a view of treating personhood as more than being matter, more than being physical, but actually having a non-physical component that is ultimately the source of this thing that we call choice. So I just think it's noteworthy here, whether the writer is aware of it or not, that this would lean toward a secular naturalistic worldview as they are defining will. So just something to take note of, to be aware of. And I think it's a really relevant topic as we are talking about the nature of AI, where AI is likely to go, what kinds of things might be possible with AI. It gets into the issue, as I've talked about before, of like digital transcendence, where some people would hope that they'd be able to upload, quote unquote, their consciousness into some kind of like a physical machine and live forever that way. I've made other videos, oddly enough, some DC Comics reaction videos detailing why that won't work and why that really won't even work on a naturalistic worldview. So anyway, but I like to call out these kinds of moments because with so much conversation about the nature of AI, these are things for us as believers to just kind of keep an eye on and be aware of and know what the core issues are, so that we have opportunities for some really worthwhile discussion, whether that's with other believers or with non-believers, to really identify where some of these ideas come from, what the ramifications of them are, what the assumptions of them are. So anyway, just an interesting moment here that really stood out to me in this issue. But that is it. That's the only comic I had to talk about this week, so those are all of my thoughts on comic books. Oh wait, no, hang on. I gotta explain my ring selection. I went with the green ring representing Will, not just because of the kind of like theme going on here of Green Lantern and willpower and stuff like that, but I think Maybe I'll wear the green ring at times when I feel like what's called for in what I'm reacting to is discernment. Because discernment is really an act not just of the intellect, but of the will. You know, we really have to choose to parse through things and figure out what the truth is. And so I guess maybe I'll wear the green ring for those kinds of reactions now and then. But yeah, interesting stuff. And those are all of my thoughts on comic books for now. As always, I'd love to get your thoughts in the comments below. And then you can check out christiangeekcentral.com. I hope you do. As always, lots of content made for you there as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services.